Hello, this is Rats with Lesson004. I've got a position set up here for you and an exercise. What I'd like you to do in a moment is pause the video and start writing down a few things. What's the first move that comes to mind for you with white? Then try to find other moves. Get as many as you can. Now, when this game actually occurred, my flag was hanging. I had probably less than a minute. I couldn't tell you exactly. This was played in 1976. So, but there's a lot to be had here, and we'll get into it in just a moment. Okay, so you know the instructions. Pause the video and write down candidate moves that you would play in the order that you determined them. Okay, pause the video. Alright, we're going to resume, but before I give the solution, and actually I'm not going to give the solution until the end, I'd like to talk a little bit about what this purpose of this lesson is. In lesson 1, what I showed you was that the way to get better at chess was to analyze your games. And again, I can only show you examples of what I did in my games. And in this particular case, this was a game, as I said, played way back in 1976. This person that I played against was a young chess master, incredibly talented, incredibly gifted. He finally gave up the game about 20 years ago with an FM title, but he was definitely international master strength. He just shot up like a weed with his chess. He went just 2 years or 3 years before this game was played, he was unrated, and within a year and a half he was a solid 1900, 2000 player, and just kept on going up and up. And I won't get too much into his career. I have actually at some point 3 more games that I played with this young master that are going to be very instructive, and we'll get to those eventually, but just one of these games for now will suffice. Okay, as I've said, the key to success at chess is to analyze your own games and try to find out your strengths and weaknesses. And by analyzing, you develop your analytical power and better insight into the board, tactical strength, everything. You sit there and you work on things, and you just keep working and keep working. And that's what this game, the analysis I did on this all those years ago, did for me. And I didn't really realize it at the time. The method I've shown you in my lesson 1, how to get better, I just kind of had to look back at my chess career and put all the pieces together and devise a program that I could explain and that you in turn can follow, and hopefully in a much quicker time period than I did. In this particular game, my scorebook says my rating was 1880, so I guess my ability was right about there. And certainly white has a lot to be happy about here, it looks like. The black king has no moves. White has an extra piece, although black has 3 pawns for it. But how did I get such a position? And this should be an extremely interesting game for you. I'm not so much focused on the moves before that, the move 1 through 38, but we'll talk about them because I think it's important. And I'm more concerned with what you can do with this position, and there's going to be a lot of work to do here that'll get your thinking cap on and your brain cells motivated, and you're going to do okay here. Okay, so as I said, this is the last lesson, 003. I talked about how to analyze your postal chess games or your correspondence chess games. Now here's an example from over the board play. Okay, let's go way back. Now, one thing, as I talked about, the higher your rating is, the fewer mistakes you're going to make. And I made a number of them in this one. But that's okay. We're not so much focused on how bad you're playing. We're focused on finding out what you're doing wrong so you can come back with a better move and a better plan next time. And playing this gentleman was great experience for me. As I said, I played him 3 more times within the next year, and each game has its own story to it, and I believe it'll all help you in your chess development. Okay, what happens? Alright, so far so book. Just a Sicilian Najdorf, and Here he plays knight Bd7. Now, I don't have all the current theory on this in front of me. I haven't looked at the current theory or any theory on this in years. But I just played it as if black had played e6 and continued on with f4. And black comes up with this very interesting move. Now, it looks a lot like a poison pawn, but there's a difference. The position of the black queen knight and the black king pawn. So I took a look at it, and I ended up playing queen d2. Okay, have the pawn. I don't care. And he accepted, and I played rook b1 and queen a3. So here we're very similar to a poison pawn, but there's some differences. And I recall looking this up in ECO, that's Encyclopedia of Chess Openings. It was being published back then. I looked it up in ECO, and it gave this position an analysis, and it said unclear. There were no game references, so at that time, nothing significant had been played. I imagine it's been played a few times ever since, but if you're a player of the white or black pieces looking for something new to try, this game might give you something, a new idea to play in the Najdorf. You'd have to research it again. I don't know what's happened. That's your job. You're the ones playing these openings. I can't show you everything. You got to do the work, because that's what's making you a better chess player, when you do the work, not when I do it for you. Okay, I know that I've played over it a few times since I loaded up here in my library, and I definitely found a lot of mistakes I made, but that's typical. I'm not master strength. I'm not close to master strength yet, but we'll see what happens. Okay, now black decides he's going to play this dragon style and try and bank his extra pawn. And I'm saying, well, I just want to get developed, and with this move, I've got every piece developed, and he still has both bishops and both rooks and on their original squares and is not castled. So for a pawn, I guess that's a cheap price to pay. Okay, so now I played king h1, just a useful move. Get it off to the side of the board. Sometimes it's a good choice, sometimes it isn't. I don't really have any comment about it now, but I like my logic. I'm making sure there's no trick later where there's a queen check on c5 and maybe that knight on c3 gets loose. So this is fine. I have such a lead in development, I guess I have time. An alternative maybe idea to try might be g4, but that's going to come here soon enough. So king h1 and then black castles. Now he's getting closer. He's still got a couple pieces sitting at home, but he'll get those out soon enough. And now I play f5. And it's kind of a thematic move in this Sicilian formation. The advantage is it's starting to grab some space on the king side, make some exchanges, maybe make some weaknesses in the black castle position. The drawback to it is it gives up e5 to black's control. He can plop a knight in there, but if white has to do something, he's going to have to make some kind of a concession to get any kind of an advantage out of this and justify the pawn sacrificed. So the outcome is still in doubt, and now he decides he needs the queen redeployed, get it back in the game, and then I play bishop e3. And I don't know if that's the best move. It's kind of moving the bishop back. It's got a cheapo threat, knight e6, attacking the queen and threatening to play knight f8. It's like when I played this over, I said, gee, I'm moving a piece twice. Why don't I just continue with what I'm doing? So today, economy says play g4 and follow with h4. So, but bishop e3 isn't a bad move. It may not be the best move, but we're not trying to determine that. But what we are trying to do is think creatively and say, well, what other move did I have? And go from there. But bishop e3, turns out it works out, and we'll see as we get there. Now he doesn't want any part of a discovery, so I've backed his queen up a little bit, and now I start shoving my pawns. So I still have got those ideas going. Now he comes in here with his knight to c5. Now he's piling up on e4, so he's got some activity now. He's still behind in development. But I've got to stop and deal with that. And I played bishop f3, which again seems logical. It secures the pawn and clears the second rank if my queen needs to slide over. So let's see what happens. Rook b8. He wants to play b5, but he doesn't want any trick where I get e5 in and I'm attacking it. So that's fine. It gives me time to do what I want to do. And I play g5, and he backs the knight up. Now I get a good square for my knight here, knight d5. So it looks like even with bishop e3, I've done okay. I've driven his queen really out of play. Where is it going to go? It's got a5. No, it doesn't have a5. My queen's on it. It basically has one move, and that's queen d8. So it can be argued that that white's done quite well here for the pawn sacrificed. Okay, so c4, and this may not be the best move. I don't know exactly why I played it. Probably what I need to be doing is keep the economy alive on the king side and shove a pawn. That seems perfectly logical. I don't know why I played c4 unless I want to restrict b5. So there's some method to my madness, I suppose. Although even if he plays b5, what's he going to do next? My attack's on the king side. But b5's c4's okay, but I'm just trying to explain the best I can recall my thought process or determine that based on the moves I see and the logic I would have used when I played it. So I didn't know much about chess then compared to what I know today. Alright, so let's move on. c4, now knight e5. Now he's got a great square for both knights, and here I just commit a plain oversight. As I said in the last lesson, I'm prone to one movers, and I just give him a pawn. Bishop e2. Well, look, that hangs the pawn on e4, so oops. Well, at least I have a decent position. It's not that bad. Okay, knight takes e4. Now I've got to find a new square for the queen. And here I believe is where he made a mistake and handed the advantage right over to me. What he needs to play is I think bishop takes f5 because I'll show you why. Bishop takes f5 is perfectly good here because it just collects a third pawn. And what am I going to do? Take it. Okay. Now I have to be careful. If I play rook takes f5, he has e6, and there's a fork. Of course, this thing's hanging too, but it's tricky. But anyway, that was a possibility. He didn't see it, and instead I end up with a nice advantage after knight c5. So even though I had blundered a pawn away, it wasn't all that clear exactly how black was going to take advantage of it. And here I'll show you what happens. f6. And wow, it looks like white's got a lot for his two pawns sacrificed. And I'd have to say today, yes, he does. What's black going to do here? Do you want to stick the bishop on h8 where it's permanently stuck? Do you want that? I don't know. It's kind of a gruesome choice to make. In some cases, it might be better to just sacrifice the bishop and get as many pawns for it as you can and see what happens later. And in effect, that's what does happen. Let's see what goes on. Okay, now I've buried it. So he's going to, like I say, he's got to play bishop h8. Oh, he can't play bishop h8. Look, bishop h8, he loses his queen. Check. And black's lost. Black can resign. Okay, so he has to come up with something else. He plays bishop e6. And there's probably a lot of ways to go to win here. White is definitely winning. I didn't navigate the middle game the best way. I would, of course, do much better today with this position, but back then I was only 1880, and maybe you're 1880 or 1680 or 1380, whatever. You'll just get better. Don't worry. This is my strength back before I became a master, and I was doing the best I could. Okay, so I calculated this line would work out, and I'll show you what happens. Okay, he needs to retake, and now I go ahead and take the piece, and he decided to liquidate a rook with check. Now I've got an open file for my rook. My knight's under attack, but I've got a threat down here, rook f8 check, so he doesn't have time to stop and take the piece. He's got to deal with what's in front of him. And now to do a quick evaluation, I have an extra piece and he has 3 pawns for it. And I have a great position. Objectively, white's winning this with ease, and I may not see every winning chance and show you every winning chance that I had, but that's not important. What's important is when we get to the final position, or the starting position that I showed you at the beginning, so that we can then begin the exercise from its intention, showing you the work I put out. Everything else between now and then is just gravy and entertainment. You can gain some insight from my thoughts. Okay, so knight f4. Now I've got a threat, bishop takes c5, undermining the defender of e6. Okay, knight d7. So now he plans to take back on c5 with a knight. How do I deal with that? Okay, queen d2. Now I'm attacking d6, and I've got some masked threats on h6 for what that's worth. Okay, he played e5. Now I brought the knight back to g2, and I'm not sure about that. My first impression when I play it was, why did I do that? Without going into long thought, the logical move seems to be knight d5, just putting it on a great square. Unless I'm missing something, g2 just seems a little removed from the action. But anyway, it's what I played, so got to live with it. I can't change it now. All right. Okay, so knight f6. Now at least his knights are active. His queen is back where it started, and his rook is still stuck over there on b8. It's not helping. He's basically got 2 knights and a couple of center pawns defending his king, and a couple of other pawns over there by his king, keeping me at bay. Okay, so what do? Got to keep up the pressure. Check. Okay, goes back to h8, probably the safest place to go. Now bishop f3. Okay, I've got an idea here. You'll see it's going to go to d5. That's what I came up with. Now b5, looking for counterplay. Now I'm happy if he takes. I get potential to get a rook on the 7th rank, and depends on how I retake with the queen. The queen will be ready to pile in to run into the enemy camp. So I can afford to give up my bishop pair here, and I guess he agreed with that, and he didn't want any part of it. So now I just stopped and collected my pawn. I don't know if he can get away with d5 here. He didn't play it, but that's not important. I'm not going to worry about that move now. I'll show you what he did play. Knight e4, knight ce4, getting his keeping his knights active. They guard each other. They control some squares in my camp and keep me out of a few of them. So it's not bad. Not a bad defense for black. Okay, queen e2 and a5. Now I start redeploying things. And queen g2, rook c8, bishop d5. Now I've got a threat. I'm threatening to take his piece. And queen a4. Now actually, white has a better move here than I actually played, but it's not important. And in a way, I'm glad I didn't play it because of what happens after this. But white has a pretty easy win here. Oops, hit the wrong button. Okay, bishop b3, and now we reach the position that we started with, and the question was, what are your candidate moves? And I'm not going to show you what I played. What I played is I blundered the game away, and that's not important. How I blundered the game away. What's important is the work I put in to prove that white wins this position. And I don't know what your move was. If you want to take a look again, pause the video, come back in a moment, and then we'll share. Okay, so you should have resumed again, and I'd be interested to know what candidate moves you got. You can let me know, message me, and so forth. There's all sorts of ways to find me. Facebook, ICC message, FICS message, chess.com message, email. Be curious what people actually came up with here. But sometimes when you're caught in the heat of the moment, you can't see everything. I remember when I played the move I did, a friend of mine shook his head, and I could see it, and I knew I missed something, but I didn't know what I missed until a few moves later when I resigned and had to, and he showed me, and we looked at a few things, and then I went home and did my homework. But the key move in this position is to play knight f5. Completely didn't even see it. What does it do? Well, it threatens a mate in 1. That's pretty potent. And if you take the knight, white still gets his mate in 1. Even the bishop would do it. Might be a little more aesthetically pleasing. Bishop mate. Okay, so I missed knight f5. Now the question is, what does black do? How does he defend this? So the first thing he's going to have to do is deal with the threat on g7. So there's a lot of ways to do that. Let's run through them one at a time, and then we can make an exercise out of this. Okay, the first defense is rook c7. Now here's a point where you might want to stop the video and try and solve it. And if you do that, you should come up with this. So go ahead and pause the video and now come back. Okay, you've resumed the video. How does white win this? Let's see. If I recall, this is the position where I get a really pretty back rank mate. Okay, knight takes d6. Now this threatens to win a piece. So he takes back, and then I run down here and grab this knight. Now notice he doesn't have a check on c1. My bishop covers that. So I'm threatening to play both rook f8 mate and rook takes d6. So suppose he blocks things with the knight. Well, the winning move now is queen check, and he's got 3 pieces to throw to me, and none of them secure the same square, so he's going to lose them all if he wants to stave off mate as long as he possibly can. Queen b8 followed by rook c8 followed by knight d8. My queen happily bunches each and every one of them. Okay, so there was one win. Let's go back. Okay, as I said, knight f5. So we've ruled out rook c7. Another idea is, got to guard g7, is to play rook g8. And what does white do here? So pause the video and come on back. Okay, the winning move is bishop takes c8. What does black do? He's really hurting. He's given up more material. He can't take with the knight because I have bishop mate, so he's got to take with the king, and now I'm up a rook for 3 pawns, and I've got all kinds of pressure here. How about knight check? That looks good. I don't remember exactly. Or even knight takes d6. That should do him in. He really has no resource. So rook g8 is just an admission that white's going to win, so we've got to find a better move. And d5 is another. Whoops, got to get knight f5 in first. d5 is another way. It provides a flight square for the king, but this is easy to deal with as well. I believe. Let's see. Pause the video and come back and see if you can solve this one. Okay, you've paused the video. Now I have to stop and remember what it is. Okay, if anything, I could probably play bishop takes d5 here, and well, maybe not. His queen could take back, but then I have knight e7. Trying to remember this. I'm not perfect. I can't remember everything. Maybe your solution, you're laughing at me because you already have it, and I'm struggling here. But there's all kinds of ways to do this. If anything, I could maybe just do the bishop check, and gosh, all kinds of things here. Knight e7 check wins the rook. There's a lot of ways to win this with white. So d5 doesn't really do anything for him. But we haven't seen the best variations yet. Okay, this is what hard work does. I spent a lot of time working this out. Now I'm showing it all really quick, and you're probably solving it all faster than I did way back in ancient history. All right, so the most interesting defense happens when, whoops, got to play this first. The most interesting defense happens with knight h5. And now if you notice the time, I'm not sorry, not the time, the move numbers, this was played with the time control, I believe, of 40 moves in 2 hours, and as I explained earlier, my flag was hanging. I had under a minute to make my moves, so all I've got to do now is play one more move, and I'm good to go. So let's pause the video, and you try to find out what White's next move should be. Okay, you've repaused the video, and White's best move, if you played it, you just gotta follow up with what you're doing. Knight e7. This is White's best move, and it puts Black in a serious quandary. And we'll talk about it here in a moment. Now the black rook can't leave the back rank because there's mate. If you see that, you should see that. So let's look at the possible moves that Black could try here to defend this. Okay, the first logical one is kind of tricky. Knight g3 check, and this has a point to it. The point is that if queen takes g3, Black can grab on f1 and with check, and we have to stop and figure all that out. But White just slides his king over, and then Black happily takes the rook, and White trades queens. And instead of taking that knight, we run down here and take this bishop. And this is completely winning for White. He's got 2 pieces for 4 pawns now, but the Black knight is under attack, and pawns are going to be falling here really quick, and White will eventually promote that a pawn, and who knows, maybe even be able to checkmate with the 3 minor pieces without even needing to do that. But that's not important. So we can bury the notion that knight g3 check helped him. What about the other one? I think it's pretty much the same. Yeah, it's pretty much the same, just transposed into the same position. Okay, so what else does Black do here? He can try, if he tries knight f4. If anything, I can just, have my choice. Well, no, I don't. The queen's guarding f1. I guess I just take that guy off, and he's given up a piece, and he's got a rook loose, so that should do it. Okay. So, I should have had you stop the video there. My mistake. All right. What else does Black do? So we rejected rook c7. We rejected rook c7 just flat out fails to mate. So you got to do something with the rook. That's the only other alternative. And it really doesn't matter where you put the rook. This is as good a square as any. And now the position gets very interesting. Once again, you can pause the video and try to find out how White follows this up. You don't have to prove the win yet because it's still a ways away. But what White to play and do the best he can. Okay, you should have resumed the video by now. Let's have a look. The best thing about this position is White's made time control and now has time to take 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever it takes to find the best move. And the most logical move to play here is rook f7. And this has all kinds of new tactical threats to it. It renews the... It doesn't really renew anything, but it's basically saying, no, you can't play queen takes e4 because, oh yeah, you can. Yeah, it puts the threat on the knight on e4, so Black's got to deal with that. So let me show you this defense. Okay, if Black tries this, I think this is the prettiest solution of them all. Once again, White to play and do the best he can, and pause the video and come on back. Okay, you should have resumed the video, and you'll like what you see here. Okay, let's see, what was it? Oh yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure it was rook takes h7 check. Now he's got two ways to retake. I know if the king takes, this is the pretty one. If the king takes, queen takes g6 check, forcing king h8, and now bishop g7 check, forcing knight takes g7. Now queen h6 check, forcing knight h7, and here you have it, knight e8 or knight g6 mate. And when I found that the first time, I just groaned. I said, "Oh my God, look what I could have had." Well, maybe I wouldn't have had it, but it was definitely very satisfying to find this continuation. And now I get a chance to share it with you, and you're just as capable of as I am of doing this in your post-game analysis. You just got to dig in and find the work. Okay, so let's go back when I play rook takes h7 check, and I was wondering, oh yeah, it's simple. You can't play knight takes h7 because then you get that little smothered knight mate a little bit earlier. Okay, so it just leaves a couple other alternatives for him to try. He can't play knight h5 f6 because there's immediate mate. So really, there's really nothing black can do here. He's just lost in all variations. Okay, while I was showing this, a new idea came up that I hadn't even thought of before, but just thought of it at the moment, and I'll show you what it was. Okay, as I said, the rook needs to move, and e8's as good a square as any, but there's a method of my madness. We'll just analyze this now. I was thinking about rook a8. Now, why rook a8? The point is, well, got to be careful. Let's not pick a8. Let's go to b8. I just don't want possibilities of that queen taking it. The idea was to let the queen come back to e8 to try to hold on to things, but I can see some problems with that already. But again, it's just my thinking process. I didn't consider some things back then that now I do, and that's because I'm a better chess player today than I was when this game was played. So white should probably continue with his logical move here, and directly if queen e8. Now this does take some of the pressure off g6. The queen is guarding that in some positions, but if anything, white just wins with rook f8 check, bishop take, or queen takes, bishop takes, and ooh, look at this. No, you can't go to c8. Rooks don't move that way. Okay, if black takes the bishop, white gets the knight, and it's clearly a winning game for white. Okay, so let's just revert back to the position, and we'll have a little closing discussion on this. As I said, I'm glad the game turned out like it did, because the work I put out for this showed me that I could do work and find things. If I'd won this game, I just would have been happy with the win, and probably never bothered to study it. As a result, it was imprinted into my brain that I should be studying my positions and finding ways to do better. And then it now 36 years later, it becomes hopefully an entertaining lesson for you. So no regrets. I enjoyed the game. You're not going to win all the time. You're going to lose winning games. You're going to win losing games. You're going to draw winning games. You're going to draw losing games. It's not so much the result, even though it is a bit of a failure if you don't get the result you want. At least if you're playing good chess, you'll come out ahead more often than you won't. And that's what I want to imprint with you folks that are following this, that you can get better at chess just simply by analyzing your games. And let's see now, did I find anything about strengths and weaknesses in this game? Well, like I said, I didn't focus my original work on moves 1 to 38. I focused my attention on the knight f5 and everything that followed. As far as the strength goes, I found out that I can calculate variations out if I'm careful. I found that out. as far as a weakness goes, I found out that I don't play well in time pressure, which is somewhat evident in my blitz game, because every blitz game you play is in time pressure. I think the move I actually played was bishop d5, and it ended up dropping stuff. See, the white rook on f1 is no longer guarded, and I don't remember exactly what happened. I played a couple more moves and then gave up. But I found out I can't play in time pressure, so that's a weakness. I certainly wasn't intimidated by this player. I knew how good he was. He was my friend. He still is if I ever run into him again. But sometimes, like I say, you play these really strong people and you're just scared and you roll over and die. So I wasn't afraid of him. So I found out that was a strength, that I rise to the challenge. And as you'll see when I eventually share my next games with him, that I certainly didn't cower down again with this person. I had 4 very memorable games with him, and eventually you'll see them all. Okay, so I look forward to any comments this particular video generates. It took a lot of work figuring all this out, and I've shown it to you in just a few minutes. And don't worry if it takes you a long time to solve all these things. I don't know how much time you spent solving the various positions and problems I posed for you. I don't know. But hopefully, as a result, you're able to find some of the lines, and hopefully all of the lines that I showed you. And if you didn't, don't worry, you'll get better. The more you look at your games, the more likely that's going to happen. All right, that concludes Lesson 004. I thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to sitting down and making Lesson 005 for you. Take care, all. Bye.